Hello and welcome to the Record Club, brought to you by Record Store Day, the official charts, and National Album Day, all in association and proudly with Bowers. And thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jess Izzat, and we are very excited that our guest this evening is Amy Macdonald, talking to us all about her brand new record, The Human Demands. If you're new to the Record Club, we are going to be spending the next half an hour talking to Amy all about the brilliant new record, and then we'll be putting your questions to her about the album. So if there's anything you'd like to know about the new record, whether it be about a certain artwork or a particular lyric that you've enjoyed, drop us a question in the comments section below, and I'll be asking a selection of them to Amy in the second half of our chat. And remember, on top of that, one lucky person who sends in a question today will be randomly selected to win a pair of Bowers and Wilkins PX7 headphones, which I'm donning right now. They're over-ear noise cancelling headphones, and trust me, they are, really, really great. So get involved with your questions. So let's get straight into this week's Record Club with the wonderful Amy Macdonald. How are we?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, actually. Although lockdown pending, we were just chatting about that, weren't we? Luckily, you're not in that, are you?
No, up in Scotland, we're okay for now, but you never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, well, we've got our one last day of freedom, and we're just kind of escaping that for a moment for the Record Club this evening. But I've got to say, congratulations on the release of your first album in 3 years. Has it been 3 years in the making?
No, I started writing this album probably the second half of 2018, finished the writing last year, and then started recording it this year. I probably could have started recording it sooner, but just with the way things worked out, I was signing a new record contract, and just the timing didn't work out, so I never got into the studio until February this year.
Oh, wow. So then I guess you must have had to squeeze quite a lot in that time.
Yeah, well, before we went into lockdown the first time round, I was halfway through, so I had kind of recorded half the record, and then we had to lock down, and I think we were out of the studio for 3 to 4 months, so that was really strange, and I worried that having that big long gap in the middle would be really detrimental to how the album would sound or how we would kind of get back into the zone. But actually, myself, my producer Jim, the musicians, we were all just so happy to see each other again after so long, and we were just so excited to have something to focus on that I think it ended up maybe giving the album an extra little push at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of extra push, I saw a really funny headline. So I'm just going to read it now. It says, Amy Macdonald reveals she's stunned that fans keep thinking she's having a baby when she's only delivering a new record. What is that about?
It's anytime I announce any bit of exciting information, there's always about 10 different comments going, "You're pregnant." And it was with this new album, I'd started to tease like little bits of information here and there that, oh, I've got a new exciting announcement coming. And people just kept saying, "You're pregnant." And I was like, right, one, I wouldn't really announce it on social media like this, but I certainly wouldn't tease up to the announcement with five previous announcements. But it's just I think it's just a kind of pitfall of being a woman in the music industry. You always get asked these ridiculous questions.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a whole nother conversation. But maybe like if there is a time in the future where you did want to do a reveal, you can play around with people's emotions just a little bit, get them back. So
Yeah.
lots of people talk about a difficult second album. What about the fifth? Like, how is that for you?
The fifth album felt great actually. I signed a new record contract with a different label, and I had been on the same label since I started my career. I signed that deal when I was 18, so it had been a long time. So signing with a new label was actually great. It was so nice to just have new faces and people with new exciting ideas, and the whole like brainstorming part of it just felt really new and exciting. So it kind of gave me that that feeling like I had right at the beginning when I was making my first album. It all felt so fresh and different to me, and I absolutely loved that. And with this album, I wrote some of the best songs I think I've ever written. So for me, it was just really exciting to get in the studio to finish the album and to finally get it out there and let people hear it. And so far, I've had nothing but kind of great response to it. So I'm absolutely thrilled with that.
And I want to talk about as well, obviously, so I've got the record here and taking it apart a bit, and I've been having a look at everything. You've got the lyrics, which I love because I'm awful at learning words, but I was just like, no, I want to be able to sing along because I'm one of those people who gets a song stuck in their head, but I just don't know what the words are, so I'm just like making up my own songs and probably trashing other people's songs. But yeah, here we go. If you haven't already got it at home, then I'd highly recommend you order it now so you can sing along with me. But can you talk to me about the title, The Human Demands? Why did you pick that track, and also why is that now the title of the album?
Yeah, that track was basically inspired by friends of mine that had been going through quite a tough time. And it just kind of got me thinking about life, really. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves. We feel like we need to be available 24/7. We put so much pressure on others. We want replies from them instantly. And we compare ourselves to kind of all of these fake photos on social media, and we think that we've got to live up to these kind of ridiculous standards that are just not real. And I just think that life would be a bit better if we kind of took a step back and asked each other how we were, and were a bit nicer, not to just to each other, but to ourselves. Sometimes the way we talk to ourselves in our head is just kind of appalling, and you'd never speak to anybody else like that. And I felt like the whole album was just kind of reflective of life and the ups and downs and the kind of highs and lows that we all face in our day-to-day lives. And I just thought that was the perfect title for the album because it's probably something that everyone can relate to. We all have our own little battles going on. And I think sometimes it would be nicer if we kind of slowed down a bit and acknowledged that everybody's just trying to do their best and kind of get from one day to the next.
Yeah, I feel like it's particularly relevant now. And like you said, obviously you started recording a while ago, beginning of this year, but it's just, yeah, ever as important now. So definitely I feel like a right time for it to come out. Has there been a surprising fan favorite?
Um, I don't think so. Like the consensus that I've seen so far is that there is no consensus, that everybody seems to have such different and varied favourites, which is a
That's a
great
sign
thing
of
to
a
me.
really good album. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. There's just so many different favourite songs that everyone's got. So that's really positive from my point of view and really promising. It makes me feel like the album's really strong, like as a whole, and that's really cool to hear.
Do you have a personal favorite or one that sticks out for you for a particular reason?
It kind of changes on a daily basis, I think. Right now, there's a track We Could Be So Much More, which is just a real soaring kind of epic guitar song. But when I've performed it recently, myself and some of my bandmates, we stripped it right back, and the acoustic version is just really lovely because it sounds completely different from the album version. And I think it's the sign of a kind of a good song when it holds up without anything, just as much as it does with all the production going on.
Yeah, I've been trying to think which one was my favorite. I think right now it might be the Hudson, maybe because I don't know, it's like I think it was the music video which kind of reignited just the story, like, and I don't know, like obviously it's never happened to me, but I feel like it's so relatable and you're like following this story. Some people are kind of saying it's like a part two to Mr. Rock and Roll. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I think the idea with this song, with the Hudson, is that kind of everything that you do in your life might have an impact at where you end up. And sometimes I spend way too much time thinking about that. I think that what would I be doing right now if I never found music? And it's kind of a stupid thing to spend my time thinking on because I'll never know the answer to that. But from a creative point of view, it was just a really interesting thing to kind of explore for an idea. And with Mr. Rock and Roll, it was kind of that idea that these two people were kind of destined to be together, but they never would because their paths would never cross. And it's kind of similar vibes with the Hudson.
Yeah. And the video for Crazy Shade of Blue, that was recorded in lockdown, wasn't it?
Both of the videos were so the Hudson
Oh, amazing.
video was a difficult one to shoot because the minute I wrote that song, I was like, the video needs to be in New York, and obviously, because of everything that happened, it looked like that would be completely impossible. But thankfully, we got a director who was happy to work remotely and shoot all these bits in New York whilst I'd done my bit at home. And through the wonders of technology, we were able to piece the two of them together. And then Crazy Shade of Blue wasn't really a video. We just thought we'll get some footage so that it's not just a kind of lyric video. We'll get something so that there's something to look at. So we done that quite quickly in a studio just after lockdown as well.
Amazing, right? Honestly, all the layers in the song as well, it's just making me miss live music so much. And I know that live music is obviously a huge part of what you normally do. What is it about performing live? Because I know the answer is going to be yes, you miss it. But what is it about performing live that you miss?
I mean, there's so many things about performing live that I miss. One, just the kind of team spirit that I have with my band and crew. Some of my bandmates and my crew members have been with me since the very beginning, so I've known them pretty much all my adult life, and not having that kind of connection with them has been really hard this year. Secondly, the connection with fans. For me, the music is never 100% until it's on a stage with people in the audience singing the words back to you. That is my favorite part of what I do. It's where everything feels like it kind of comes full circle. It's where the music was meant to be heard, and it was how it was meant to be heard. And that's what I feel when I'm writing it and making a record. So it just feels like the final piece of the jigsaw is missing. And it's great that I've been able to put that something to focus on, but it still does feel like there's a massive chunk missing, and I'm hopeful that next year we can maybe get that back.
Yeah, oh my God, all limbs, all fingers crossed, everything for it all to come back next year. But I noticed that there's a recording called "A Piece of My Heart" on YouTube, which you've put out. Is this for a new body of work that you're already working on?
Um, Probably not actually. I wrote that song when we went into lockdown and when everyone's emotions were all over the place because we didn't really know what was going on and we didn't know what to expect. And I wrote that song basically just for everyone because I think we were all feeling the same kind of highs and lows and the crazy emotions. And I just wanted to put it out there as soon as possible because it just felt very pertinent to this situation and the time. It just felt like it needed to be out there. So it wasn't something I was going to put on my album because I kind of just wrote it about this situation. And
Mm.
I've tried not to write too much in the lockdown because I think that this time next year, when we're hopefully away from all of this, I'm not sure anybody wants to be reminded of their time in lockdown. So I didn't really want an entire album's worth of songs about lockdown.
Honestly, I've heard some lockdown tunes, and there is a reason that they're not getting played out too much. So that's fine.
Yeah,
Have a break, have a well-earned break, and then
yeah.
when the inspiration comes, it will be there. But was actually one of my questions. Have you kind of thrived or only just survived lockdown? Um, would you say that lockdown's been like a break for you mentally when it comes to music and things?
Probably, and it wasn't that. strange for me because the way that my life is, it's kind of in cycles. I go away for months on end and tour and promote an album. And then when I come back and start writing a new album, I'm always at home and I've got loads of time in between. So it wasn't strange for me to kind of be at home for a chunk of time. It was kind of strange for my husband to be here the whole time as well. So he obviously done my nut in for quite a lot of it. But other than that, it was totally fine.
I was going to say, I feel like some creatives have actually been quite at home with the like adjusting to owning your own time, especially when you have chunks of it just kind of at home. But yeah, I did actually want to ask because I know that you've always remained in Scotland and you never felt the pressure to move away, or have you? Were there ever any kind of pressures or people being like, oh, you should probably move, I don't know, closer to London or like nearer where the music hub is?
Yeah, at the start of my career, there was a lot of people that found it kind of strange that I didn't live in London, and it was always seen as an inconvenience, the fact that I was in Scotland. But I have to say that as the years have went by, it seems like there's been a real kind of flip in that viewpoint. And I think that it's kind of evident now in this kind of digital world that we live in this connected world, that it doesn't really matter where you live. And at the beginning of my career, pretty much all my band crew were all based in London. But now, actually, hardly none of them are. So many of them have moved away, and it doesn't really matter where they are. It's fine. We all kind of travel and go on tour, so we just start in different places and kind of meet up when we get there.
Yeah, I've noticed lots of musicians, especially even if they did move to London, they now kind of get halfway houses or Airbnbs or something outside of London to actually do their art. And sometimes it seems like, well, like you don't actually have to be living here. But I know that you've thrown a lot of support behind the music industry in the past couple of months, and obviously quite rightly so. I do actually, do you have any sort of grassroots venues in Scotland that you'd like to shout out or that kind of helped you when you were first starting out?
Oh yeah, I mean there was loads of venues that I played in Glasgow at around about when I was starting out. A lot of bars and stuff. Unfortunately, some of them aren't there anymore. But for me, my favourite venue has always been the Barrowlands, and that is still very much an independent venue. And it's still one of the best. I met U2 a few years ago at a kind of awards thing in Germany, and we sat for a while together. And Bono was telling me about how the Barrowlands was one of the favourite gigs that they've ever played. And I just thought that was amazing that after all these years, a band like U2 still held a venue like the Barrowlands in Glasgow so close to their heart, because it's so rough and ready, but it wouldn't work if it was any other way. It just feels special and you wouldn't ever want it to change.
That's so awesome. Imagine just having your first gigs there, and then yeah, people like Bono throwing back and saying that that was one of their favorites.
Yeah,
This is the
totally. It
thing.
was
This yeah,
amazing.
this is the thing. I think that obviously people need to champion their local area, and everyone kind of migrating to London. It champion your own area. Um,
Yes, totally.
So I can see that lots of people are getting involved with the questions. Make sure to continue sending them over. We'll be coming to you very shortly. So also, I want to know. The last couple of months obviously have been a little bit of a downer to say the least for a lot of people. But the album actually has quite a sort of a bouncy vibe overall. Was it hard to get this out about kind of love and hope during what might have been or perceived as like a really tricky time for a lot of people?
Um, I don't think so because I think people like to use music as an escape. I think that music can be a real healer for people. And sometimes there is nothing better than putting your headphones on and kind of drifting away and just kind of imagining you were somewhere else. And that's something that I've always done with music. I've used it to make myself feel better in times when I wasn't feeling so great. And I think a lot of people do that. So I think there's a lot of people that were just quite grateful for new music, which they could just kind of drift away to and try not to think about everything else that's going on.
Yeah, I must say that as someone who goes to a lot of gigs, having people release new music has just been the best thing ever. So I completely agree with you on that. So, people's questions. Dan has got involved on Amy's page saying, Dan Smith, he says, hi, a number of your records/lyrics have the theme of travel, e.g., running, flying, sky high. What is it about these activities that inspire you or your music?
Well, that's really interesting. I do find sometimes there's words that creep up quite a lot. One that I noticed one time when I was performing at a festival was that I talked about the rain constantly. And I thought, that's obviously because I'm from Glasgow, the kind of wettest area in the UK. But I think that traveling is an amazing part of life. I think that traveling is probably the only thing that you spend money on that actually makes you richer. All the experiences that you gain and the memories that you have from travel are things that are with you forever. So for me, I think that that's actually really inspiring. And sometimes if I find myself on an aeroplane, I'll just look out the window and just seeing the clouds and the blue sky. It's really quite beautiful, and it just makes you feel quite creative at the same time.
Dan Moran on the Record Club's page says, hey Amy, absolutely loving your new album, especially the song Young Fire, Old Flame. Do you ever find it emotionally exhausting to constantly perform songs that bring up particular emotions, memories, or experiences?
Sometimes it can be hard, especially if it's kind of an experience that's made you sad. On my third album, I had a song that I had written about my grandmother and her suffering with Alzheimer's. And even to this day, I can't really perform it without getting that lump in my throat. And the song, like Young Fire, Old Flame, is actually about my own kind of personal struggles when the seasons start to change, and sometimes that can have a real detrimental effect on me. So it can be hard sometimes to perform these songs, and that might be why sometimes I just don't perform them. I make sure they're never in the set list. But on the other hand, I think that if you're doing a show and you're getting a little bit emotional, the kind of love and support that you feel from the audience can always help to make you feel better.
Definitely. I feel like people always feel that as well. They feel that it's a real emotion and they kind of share it with you. A problem shared. Um,
Yes.
so who have we got next? Mark Screeton on Amy's page says, hi, Mark from Manchester. How did you get noticed and then signed, please, back in the day?
So mine was quite an interesting tale because back then everything was MySpace. So everyone that was getting signed was because they were on MySpace. I think Kate Nash, Lily Allen had all got signed because they had quite a big online presence with that. I sent a demo CD away to an advert in the back of the NME magazine. And from that, I signed a production deal when I was 17. And then
Oh,
when
wow.
I turned 18, I signed a record contract with Universal Music. So it was all very, very old school. And I'm not sure it happens like that anymore. I don't think it even happened like that back then. But it's quite a cool story to tell.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Melina Crystal on the Record Club says, thank you, Amy, for this brilliant album. If you could turn back time, which would you change anything regarding your career? Would you make any different decisions?
I probably would. I think one of the major ones was with my first album. The first single that came out in the UK was a track called Mr. Rock and Roll. And then the second single that came out was a song called LA. And I didn't want that to be the second single. And I told my label that, but I kind of got outvoted. And at that point, it lost a little bit of momentum for me because that single just didn't do very well. And then they put out This Is the Life, and thankfully it brought the momentum back and the album went to number one, and that's a single I'd wanted to go with. But that's what they'd done in Europe, and they went Mr. Rock and Roll to This Is a Life, and This Is a Life ended up being a huge success all over Europe. So I sometimes wish that in the UK they went that second single, and then it might have got further up the charts here.
Well, there we go. That's a tale to just say, like, trust your own instincts. But there we go. When you've got a team of people trying to tell you what to do, that's what happens, isn't it? So, Adam Carpenter's on Amy's page says, one of the things I adore about your debut album was how much it seemed to be influenced by the late, great Kirsty MacColl. I wondered which artists you were listening to and maybe being influenced by whilst you were making The Human Demands.
Oh, first of all, Kirsty MacColl, incredible. I had the absolute pleasure of singing at a benefit concert for her a few years ago with her band, and it was one of the best nights, and I absolutely loved doing it. So it's amazing that you think that I've got that kind of sound, because that's a huge compliment. Whilst making this record, I actually don't really listen to music whilst I'm in the midst of trying to make my own record, because I don't really want to be swayed by anything. I just kind of want to do my thing and see where it takes me. But I mean, I love everything and anything. I'm very kind of eclectic with my music taste. Recently I've been listening to the new record by The Killers. I love the new one by Future Islands. I like Taylor Swift's new album, so there really is everything and anything in there which can inspire me.
And I love the new Killers album as well. It's great. Stuart Watt on Amy's page says the song The Hudson in the video. Who is the woman watching the old film? Is she someone you know? It seems quite emotional.
It's emotional because the idea is that she's watching her younger self. She's looking back on what's happened. Loads of people have asked me about this woman, and she's just an actress, so it's not somebody that I know, but she was just playing the part of the young girl in the video at a later stage in her life.
Is it based on someone you know?
It's not really based on anyone I know. The kind of initial inspiration for the song came from my parents. My dad telling me a story about him and my mum going to New York back in the day when New York wasn't really a tourist destination. And it just got me thinking. It just kind of got loads of interesting ideas in my head. So then I started thinking about the other ideas behind it, that everything happens for a reason, really, and what you do at one point in your life will possibly impact where you end up.
Have you ever walked?
I've been lucky enough to be there, to go to New York loads of times. I absolutely love it as a city. From a songwriter's point of view, I don't think there's anywhere else like it. It's just every single corner of that city is just incredibly inspiring, and anytime I go there, I feel like I'm in the middle of a movie, and I always kind of want to get my guitar out and start writing songs.
Yeah, I've only been once, very, very briefly. I was there for, I think it was 2 nights, and it was just the best place ever. I was walking around, and like you said, I literally felt like I was in a movie. I was like, yeah, I'll say hi to everyone. In London, I'm
Totally.
like, head down, don't want to speak to anyone. Um, so thank you very much to everyone for getting your questions to us. One of you lucky people will be getting a message from us about their headphones as well. So stay tuned. I'll let you know who's going to win those. But we've got a couple of extra questions for you, Amy. A couple of recommendations, because obviously this is the Record Club. But we want to know. I know you've mentioned a couple of albums that you have been listening to recently, but were there any in particular over lockdown which perhaps helped you through,
Um,
or
I mean,
artists?
I have always loved Bruce Springsteen, so I always revisit Bruce Springsteen, and it was great to get a new album from him recently as well. He has had such an incredible career, and he is an amazing songwriter. And for myself, he's just so inspiring. The success that he's had for the past however many years is unbelievable, and he's one of the best live performers I think I've ever seen. So I definitely always turn to his music for comfort.
And if you could have three albums, your favorite three albums of all time, but you no skips whenever you listen to them, which would be your top three?
So probably Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen is definitely up there. I absolutely love it. Secondly, would probably be Thriller by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was the first concert I ever went to, which I
Wow.
absolutely love because most people's are so embarrassing. My mum worked in the bookies at the time, and they had a touch tone phone before anyone had them in their house. So my mum was able to get tickets for Michael Jackson really easily,
Yes,
because of that.
Mumsy.
So that's probably number two, and then I think three is probably the Man Who by Travis. It's just such a great record, and even now, 20 years later, or maybe even more than that, it just still sounds like a really fresh album. Songs like Driftwood and Writing to Reach You are just so incredibly beautifully written, and beautifully produced, that they just sound so lovely and unique.
Amazing. What a selection. So, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. That is all we have time for. And if you haven't already got yourself a copy of The Human Demands, then we absolutely recommend you order one from your local record shop. It's the perfect album to keep you company through these cold winter months and obviously keep us nice and positive. I'm also excited to announce that the winner of this week's Bowers and Wilkins PX7 wireless headphones, noise cancelling as well, is Mark Screeton, who got involved on Amy's page. So keep your DMs open, and you've got a pair of these bad boys coming your way. And Amy, before we go, I've heard that it isn't an Amy Macdonald interview without asking about what car you're driving.
Oh. Yeah, but always the cars. I think that I always get asked that over anyone else, and I think it's just because it's unusual for a female to be talking about cars. Whereas there's loads of male artists out there that probably drive lovely cars, but they never
Yeah.
get asked. But I always do because I'm a woman.
One thing that I will say though is obviously that I heard many a question go your way about your cars, but about when you said that you're still the top, you've still got the top time on Top Gear. Is that still your title?
I think so. Yeah, having looked back at it, it's the top female. There never seems to have been anyone quicker round the track. Females, that is. So it was quite good. I was super pleased with myself when I got to do the Top Gear track, and it was just such a great experience, and it's something that I absolutely loved and feel so lucky that I got to do.
To be fair, like that's an amazing achievement just anyway. So like full stop. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you at home for sending in your questions as well. You can join say the 18th of November at 6:30 p.m. where our next guest will be revealed soon on the Record Club channel shortly. My name is Jess Izzat. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Amy, for joining us. And we will see you next time.